3 o'clock.
I call the Planning Commission meeting for February 27th, 2025 to order. We'll begin with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jackie, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Perkovich.
Excused.
Mr. Rossetti.
Here.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Here.
Mr. Varga.
Here.
Mr. Crocker.
Here.
Mr. Haddon.
Here.
Mr. Cook.
Here. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting, February 6, 2025.
So moved.
Second. Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Rossetti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Crocker.
Yes.
Mr. Haddon.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes. We have no public hearings on this agenda, and we'll move right into old business. And is item number 1 still to remain on the table?
Mr. Chairman, we have no new information still at this time.
Okay. Are you here? Oh,
Oh, you're here.
well, with that, I'll entertain a motion to remove number 1 from the table.
Second.
Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Rossetti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Crocker.
Yes.
Mr. Haddon.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes. All right, please give us your name and address and spell your name and tell us a little bit about what you want to do.
Anthony Slyman, 2339 Rivers Edge Drive, Willoughby Hills, Ohio. Slyman spelled S-L-Y-M-A-N. And we presented a lot split for a piece of property that we've owned for 50 some odd years now. It's a pretty irregular piece, as you can see, and we've several iterations in the past of trying to utilize the property. It's got a very unique zoning. It's also a very oddly shaped piece. I do have a person that's interested in buying a fair amount of the property to build a house, and we were looking to split the lot so we could sell, I think it was 16 or so acres of the 22, and then we were going to keep what originally was about a 5-acre piece, which is, I believe, the qualification for the zoning that's the property is zoned.
Thank you. Kathy, anything from the administration?
Mr. Chairman, so when this was originally submitted, when the applicant received the staff recommendations, they had indicated they were going to possibly look at some alternative design options because of some of the concerns we raised in the report. As we indicated, the reason it's before you is because this is an irregularly shaped lot. Obviously, it's always been irregularly shaped, but the residual and resulting parcel from this proposed split narrows significantly as submitted. And so the administration had concerns with the narrowness at certain points of the lot. It's as little as 10 feet wide alongside the existing golf course, which could prove challenging in terms of knowing where the property line's located. You can see there where it narrows in the middle. So we had recommended, if other opportunities were considered, say, for example, with the golf course right there, had the golf course been approached to purchase some of the land, or the Lake Development Authority to the north. And that's where it was left. So maybe the applicant could speak to some of those other alternatives, and if that had been explored at all.
So we have talked to the golf course for several years. We originally owned the golf course property, sold it in the middle 80s, kept property around it. One of this parcel is part of that. The golf course has no interest in any of that land. I spoke in depth there was a fellow years ago with the airport. His name escapes me at the moment. When the county took over the airport, he said they had interest but no money. I had some conversations with former Mayor Anderson, who was working for the airport at the county to some degree at the time, and he said that same thing the other guy said. Sure, we'd love to have it, but we don't have any money. So we've tried to we've laid out things on here to try and maybe see if we could do a development with the property. It's a challenging piece of property, and quite frankly, this gentleman came up and said he'd like to buy it and put a house in the back and play around in the woods, and we thought it wasn't a bad idea. I did have Dave Novak look into, once we've got the comments back about the irregular shape of the lot we're creating, so to speak. The challenge is the zoning requires 5 acres. And if we would just square it off and make it a lot easier, it's like 2.25 acres, 2.5 acres. So really, what you see there was just predicated on the zoning requirement. If you guys would let us have a smaller lot, then we could just leave all of that to the fellow that wants the larger portion. And then I'll market that. Maybe somebody at some point will want to build a house there.
Thank you. Kathy? Any?
Well, the commission doesn't have the authority to reduce the acreage, or the minimum lot width. Yes, it is a little unique because it's in the C1 Conservation District, which does have the unusually larger acreage requirement. So that, that is to his disadvantage at this point if he was trying to sell it. So we looked at some other design options as well. I guess, there's that creek that runs through there. He wants to build the larger acreage, and then you would just sell off the remaining at some point. Is that the plan?
Correct. Yeah, the darker shaded was the remainder piece. But candidly, if we could, like I said, if we could just get a variance to make a smaller lot, I would just sell him all of that back there. But the challenge is we put forth what meets the requirement of the zoning. So that meets your zoning requirement. It just is kind of,
Do you know if he plans to build in front of the creek or behind?
I believe he's going to build behind it. And it's not quite as big as that shows, by the way. It's more of a trickle. There's not, I don't know why it's such a big swath there. It's not a very prominent creek, if you will. So he would probably just box culvert and, his driveway and build his house further back.
Thank you. Anything from the commission members?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Varga?
I understand the problem. What happens, this is to you, Kathy, what happens if everything west of the creek is consolidated into the one property where the guy's going to build his house, and then the north property line of the smaller piece can be moved north to incorporate more land? I know it becomes a flag lot. I know we don't like flag lots, but this is really a bizarre thing. If from the street to the, I know the 200 feet, it's a violation of the 200-foot thing, but I don't know how you resolve this. These are puzzle pieces that don't fit. We would be leaving this bizarre piece of property, 10 foot wide. It has no function. It literally becomes worthless, or the majority of it becomes worthless, because the only buildable area is in the front. It's like we need an exception or some kind of wiggle room. I don't know if we have it, but is there another path this guy can go to try to get some relief? Because otherwise, that other piece of property is going to sit there forever because it's too bizarre.
Mr. Brown, any?
It's something that my office can take a closer look at. That's not a problem that I'm going to be able to solve here right now, Mr. Chairman, but we can certainly look farther into it. It's just a matter of speaking with the applicant on what his intentions are and going through some of the options with the planning department as well.
And there was a question I was going to ask. Why subdivide it at all? Why not just sell the whole piece to the guy?
Because it's just, he doesn't want that much frontage and whatnot. He just didn't, this is what he wanted, so It's kind of tough when,
I mean, that is also a very simple solution if you just don't subdivide it and sell it to them.
yeah.
Because the piece that's gonna be left is almost gonna be useless. Certainly not, I mean, there's room to do something, but,
Sure.
you know, if it was all just one piece, leave it, sell it, let them build a house, and,
Right.
you know, he doesn't have to do anything with it. I think we need some wiggle room here.
Yeah, we can, Mr. Chairman, we can certainly take a closer look at it with the planning department as well as the applicant as well. This is really the first conversation I've personally had on this project, and I was under the impression that there'd be some other kind of alternative proposal.
Okay. Is there anything else from the commission members? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I would suggest we table it and till we get more possibilities looked at. So I move to table.
Second. Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Rosetti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Crocker?
Yes.
Mr. Haddon?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes. Thanks.
Thank you for your time.
I'll entertain a motion to remove from the table a site alteration of a commercial building at 7461 and 7455 Center Street. Is that applicant, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Jackie, please call the roll.
Mr. Rosetti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Crocker?
Yes.
Mr. Haddon?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes. So is that applicant here? Come on up, give us your name and address. Tell us a little bit about what you'd like to do on Center Street.
My name's Tony Centenni, last name spelled Centanne. I'd like to introduce my general contractor as well as my stepfather and my pastor to speak on my behalf.
Request in the parking lot where we,
Yeah, you just give us your name and address, okay?
okay, my name is Ed Henry. Here for 7461 Center Street.
Okay.
We paved the parking lot and adjoined the parking lot with that one. And we were instructed we need to divide those parking lots back, driveways. So we have installed stop blocks between the properties now to make individual driveways. And we're waiting on the weather to break or we can put the proper lineage and stripage in the parking lot. We submitted a plan to 4 parking places. And there was a question on drainage, which I come in today and met with somebody and they said he had no problem with the drainage there. Anything else we need to do, I need to, know what we need to do to clear this matter up so we can move on.
Okay. Kathy, anything from the administration?
Okay, so just to, and I guess expand on some of the comments Mr. Henry indicated. We've provided a list of conditions, and we've actually amended them since the packets went out. After speaking with the engineering department today, one of the requests of Mr. Henry was if they didn't have to do, as noted in the conditions under item 2, was to not do a solid continuous curb, but rather do the curb stops, which, in speaking with the engineering department, they're fine with that. Actually, it's probably, there's 2 different schools of thought on it, but it would actually be better from a drainage standpoint to have the gaps. They do want to see, though, which is why number 3 has been modified, a building permit application so that they can inspect the curb stops so that they're installed properly. And we've also added number 9 to have the surveyor that prepared this to then do a follow-up as-built survey so that we can then document that the curb stops were installed and the parking spaces were installed on the proper lot and do not overlap the property lines. So those are our changes to the conditions that were originally provided. They did also provide with us today the contractor who installed the pavement, and that will be provided to the engineering department. This is, again, standard practice following planning commission approval. It goes to the engineering and building department, and then they issue a permit. So this is nothing out of the ordinary, but they do want that. This does not preclude them from obtaining their occupancy for the barber shop that wants to open. The spaces do meet this requirement, and that's fine. We have no objections to that, and neither does the building department. So that can proceed. The items with the parking lot, they can continue to work on while the barber shop opens, as long as you are agreeable to it, and get everything squared away with the engineering department, as we've indicated in the comments.
Anything from the commission members?
Mr. Chairman,
Dave?
I have a question on this, where there's the 28-foot width marking there. Is that an open drive to the property to the north? And if not, then why isn't there a curb stop there?
Yes, it's open drive.
So I thought the idea was the existing driveway of the property to the north is the only access to the back of that, and not through this property.
Well, they would have to establish easement rights to cross over, and it's not a bad thing to have that secondary access point
So-
to the lot.
So there's no condition for establishing the easement then?
We can certainly add it. It was how they originally submitted it, but it would have to be modified to just indicate that they have access easement rights to that.
Mr. Chairman?
Dave, are you finished?
Yeah, I am. Thank you.
Mr. Varga?
The second condition talks about prohibiting any cross-traffic between the two properties. That would, in my mind, be a continuous line of curb stops that would not allow vehicle through. So we're saying that in the back, there'd be a space in excess of 30 feet that would be an opening between the two properties. So I guess we got to clarify this one way or the other.
Well, you could also do some signage. You could say private property, so that customers that are coming into the lot for use of the 7461 address don't go over there to park. I mean, that's really what we're looking for, is to try to achieve that. That's a possibility, unless you have any other suggestions.
Well, let me have I ask a question. Why do you want to be able to drive between the two lots?
I may address.
Sure, go ahead.
Give us your name and address and make sure you speak into the mic.
David Baker, 287 Hale Road, Painesville. I am the tenant, the lessor at 7465.
The house,
Yes.
yes.
I believe the commission knows what happens in my tenants in the house is sober living environment. If we block that off, it's very thin right now for emergency and safety vehicles back there, the way this thing is laid out.
Okay.
And so we want to be able to have some access there.
Sure.
So I have complete control. Not many of the guys in the house drive, but they know to use only the driveway. There's a traffic flow situation in this, right? In and out. So parallel parking along that line and the installation of the green space make that difficult. You're pulling in and you're parking facing to, I guess, to the rear building, straight ahead now, you're pulling in. Where that orange cone is, you're putting a green space with a tree. Not conducive to parallel parking. If they're gonna pull in there and their doors, your driver door is on that barrier side of the property, right? You following me? So the parallel parking, while adequate and serves the needs, it's still very challenging. How are those people going to pull forward now and get out without using either Carver's driveway exit out? They're going to have to pull in, pull back, pull around, and back out forward. So there is a flow. We would like, and it's amenable to us, to even have a U around, a circle crossover. I know that's part of that whole challenge of easement and things like that. But we're looking at safety vehicles, we're looking at traffic flow. So
Well, yeah, it's a good answer. I mean, if, on the basis of emergency vehicles alone, that's a reasonable reason to be
Because
able to.
they have to be able to get in and
Get
out
in and out.
and maneuver.
I agree.
Yes.
I agree 100%. Maybe some signage, as you suggested, to control general traffic.
You could say emergency access only. There could be a sign. You could add that as an item.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
I would recommend an easement be in place for that. One of the concerns that we had originally with the original proposal on this was the actual parking on the neighboring property. The access would be far less of an issue in the fact that it would be mostly for emergency situations, but we would like to have some form of a condition for an easement in place for that too.
If I can address that, behind the house, there is an easement. Mr. Centeni does have an easement behind that house and the garage. No, towards the front, right. So there is an easement for parking there. Our guys really are allowed to park because of the consideration of Mr. Centeni. So that easement exists.
Mr. Chairman, there would need to be an easement though for the drive, the 12-foot drive there for the access to the parking lot next to it.
Already turned in.
That's
We have
there.
easement for that also.
Has to be signed and approved. I mean,
Recorded.
Yeah, it has to be recorded, and then also we have to have the authorization of the property owner.
Okay. And it looks like that wouldn't be a problem anyway, right?
No, I believe that's in the paperwork.
It's already turned in.
Yeah,
It's already been submitted.
yeah, it's
Well,
all.
that's fantastic.
Only question I have is you want me to get another survey done after the blocks is put down? I mean, this is gonna make the third one ahead of this property. We're talking $6,000 worth of surveys just for stopping blocks.
Yep. You got to get into the mic. See, she's yelling at me.
Sorry. I mean, you're requiring me to have another survey just for the stopping blocks once they go down? This is the third one I've had to get.
Kathy?
The survey is to again verify that the blocks are put properly on the location on the property. This is all being done because this is all being done after the fact. So we're doing this to safeguard and make sure that everything's put in place properly. It's, we require as-built on a number of different reasons for a number of different occasions. A CRAB survey has everything done. It's just a matter of them verifying that what was built, what was put in place, the final striping and the curbing is in place, is in fact there, and that it's on the property that it's supposed to be and not encroaching.
Mr. Chairman, if I may add, the purpose for the easement is these owners may not be the continuous owners down the line, and so this is a protection for property rights that are being given up or added to these neighboring properties. And in order to ensure that everyone's on the same page and no one's property rights are being infringed upon, these easements are tools to ensure that everyone understands who has what rights to what pieces of the property. So what exists now may not be what's in existence tomorrow, but this easement ensures that this is a legal document ensuring that those rights are clarified to both property owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else from the commission?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Haddon?
I just have a question. I thought the last time we didn't have an easement because it put the property in non-compliance. So this is just an access easement, not a parking easement, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Again, the big issue with the prior concept was the fact that there would be vehicles for the commercial property, commercial tenants parking on a residential property, which would substantially change that residential property. With an access easement, that's a distinction at that point where you're not going to have commercially purposed vehicle parking on a residential property. Here, it's more of an understanding, particularly with emergency services, that it's really a contingency plan more than anything else, rather than painted lines for parking on a residential property for commercial tenants.
Thank you.
Our understanding of the easement, where the parking was, that was not part of the easement initially. Behind the house is what we're talking about, where an easement exists. Along the front of the rear property, through the back of the house, and between the garage. So along the side of the house where that parking was, that was correct. There was no easement for that. but there is an easement at the back of the house. So that is the one that is documented. It's part of the sale agreement. And that, you know, if it needs a designation for safety vehicles, I guess that's not a problem. We can do that because it already exists. And Mr. Dummermuth, who owns the property that I work with, he'll allow that. So we're not creating a new easement for different parking because the parking is reverting back to its
Right,
original
right.
space.
We got. This is a unique lot, and I think that this is probably the best case scenario. Anything else from the commission members? All right.
You want to amend the conditions to include that we need the access easement and the language updated.
Okay. Which one is that? Number
And
10. Yeah, you got to get into the mic though.
The only reason I spent well, it's going to be about $5,000 so far doing all of these easements and whatnot at the request. And now I'm guessing I'm being asked for yet another easement, and that's okay. You know, at the end of the day, I just want everybody to be happy. And at the end of the day, even though I know my original solution was clearly aggravated a lot of people, it was just me trying to accommodate my tenants and my neighbors. And okay, so if I got to pay for another easement, that's what I'm going to do, and it's okay. But don't ask me for the easement I already did if that's not what you wanted. So now I'm going to waste money on another easement, and that's okay. I'm going to do it. But thank you very much for hearing me. This has been very stressful for me, and all I'm trying to do is good things for Mentor. So I thank you, and I'm going to calm down now and go sit down.
Thank you. Anything else? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I think we need to amend
Yep.
item 2. I would suggest that in the second line after prohibit any, we insert non-emergency cross-traffic. Would that suffice? Or do we want to rewrite this completely?
Kathy?
I think that would be sufficient. Replacing any with non-emergency.
Okay.
And the additional need for an easement, access easement.
A cross-hatch, cross-access easement, number 10. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
That's the new one,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah. Motion to approve with 10 requirements as previously stated.
Second.
What is number 10 specifically?
Mr. Brown, you want to give us number 10?
This is with respect to the easement, the
Yes.
access easement.
Access easement.
There will be an access easement established for emergency vehicles.
Good?
Sure.
Thank you. Jackie, please call the roll.
Need a second.
Second.
There you go.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Crocker?
Yes.
Mr. Haddon?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes. Have a good day, guys.
I have one more question.
Oh, you can ask it. Go ahead.
We put in an easement for a shared driveway. Would that not cover the easement that you're needing now?
Mr. Chairman, the parking lot easement gives different rights than what an access easement would be. This access easement will restrict any kind of ability for the commercial property to somehow institute some form of parking. Not saying this current operator would do that. However, for future owners of the property, they would be able to do something like that with that form of right for parking. This access easement would specify and prevent the parking. It would specify access use only.
Thank you.
It wasn't for parking, it was just access driveway for both of us to use. They had their parking lot, we had ours.
Well, Mr. Chairman, whatever the easement being proposed by the owner winds up being, they can certainly provide it to the city and we can review it from our law department. And if there are any issues, we can certainly discuss.
You have a copy. It's already been submitted.
All right. You guys have a good one.
About the green space and the access. If we put the green space in, the access to the house next door, the tree, you're not gonna be able to get a fire truck in that driveway. I mean, it's very, very tight. If we have to put it in, we will, but it's gonna make that driveway super duper tight.
Mr. Chairman, we could work with the fire department then at that point and discuss some options from there.
All right, thank you.
Now you can start cutting hair. You can open, right? Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Under new business, we have an informal rezone of 1.34 acres from B2 to general business PID, planned infill development. Is that applicant here? Please come up, give us your name and address, and tell us about the most anticipated project on Menor Avenue.
Hi, Mr. Chairman and commission members. My name is Allison Sikora. I am the president of Uptown Menor LLC. Sikora is spelled S-I-K-O-R-A, and I reside at 9260 Kathleen Drive here in Menor. So I think it's appropriate at this time. I mean, I know you have a little bit of a handout, and this is an informal rezoning review, but I think it makes sense to kind of update you a little bit on the project. I was in front of you in 2021 with a little bit different of a project for Uptown Menor. At that time, real estate professionals all over the country were saying that there's going to be a major push in needing office space in suburban communities. With that being said, I decided at that time to do a mixed-use project, a predominantly speculative office. That did not pan out. The real estate experts were not correct. I did go all the way through the approval process. After we got the approval process, we really started moving towards getting the process moving and building and demolishing. At that time, it was at the peak of when construction costs really took off. Also, at that time, interest rates doubled. And then lenders became very unwilling to lend on speculative office projects. So the project at that time was tabled. That did not mean that I sat idly by. Ever since that time, I've been working diligently to figure out what to do with this project. I'm 100% committed to changing this area. This is, as I've mentioned before, this is Menor's home for me, and this is a project of pride, and it means a lot to me. It's my legacy, I guess, to Menor. So I'm presenting to you a new project, and this project is predominantly mixed, it's a mixed-use project, but multifamily. As you know, the city of Menor recently did a housing study. And it was determined at that time that Menor is very much lacking multifamily housing. It seemed like a perfect opportunity to run with that and present a project that would still be mixed use. It would still be extremely transformative of the area. The first floor would be restaurant, retail. Those are two things lumped together. Building amenities, maybe a co-working office space in there, and there would be 3 floors of 45 units of multifamily housing. So today I brought with me Brandon Klein. He's the chief architect on this from Geist Companies, and then Mike Sikora from Sikora Law. He is counsel for the project. So we are here today with this informal review. It is currently zoned B2 for Business 2. We would like to have it rezoned for the PID, Planned Infill Development Overlay. We presented to you more than you probably need for an informal review because we really want to accelerate this process and get this plan through. we've learned that sometimes you got to get moving with this. If not, things change in the market and we really want to get moving. So we're here and can address any questions you may have.
Thank you. Kathy, could you just run through the process as well?
Certainly. So with a rezone to a plan development overlay district, we did a little bit of an overview in the report, but for the benefit of everybody possibly listening, this would actually go over the B2 district and be in addition to the current zoning. So it's a tool that we adopted a few years back to replace the old plan unit development district option. And again, we felt that this provided more opportunities, either doing the large-scale mixed-use and a residential-only plan development overlay, or in this case, a planned infill development. The planned infill development is ideal for this type of location because it is distressed. And under the charter, if you have a property that's currently commercial and industrially zoned, and you can demonstrate that it is economically distressed, you don't have to go through a referendum process to rezone it. So this will go through a rezoning amendment process, which is through the normal steps of the first, which is why we're here tonight, the informal, then they'll come back for a formal rezoning submission where we'll have the public hearing. You guys will make a recommendation to council. They will then hold their public hearing and do a vote on the actual zoning and the preliminary development plan with it. So after that's done, assuming all goes well, if it gets rezoned, they will come back for final development plan review. You'll have another chance to look at it, but the rezoning will be in place. And then they'll go through the more rigorous review at the final plan stage, and it goes back up to council specifically for plan development projects. They go back to council for a second review of the final plan.
Thank you. Anything from the commission members? And normally we kind of give a little, but a lot more was submitted than what we normally see on on an informal. But if anybody has any, yeah, Mr. Duke.
I just wanted to say, I love it.
Thank you.
I'm a stickler when we say Old Village, because and so, in my head, when I hear Old Village, we like to see new projects that give some architectural elements that harken back to years gone by kind of thing. So there's a way you can throw some design elements in there there's a lot of black, I guess. I love the red brick. I think that's awesome. But yeah, if there's anything that, I don't know if you can grab from the building next door that carries through or something like that.
We are utilizing, Brandon Klein, Geist Company's address is 2017 East 9th Street, Cleveland. Sorry about that. So we are going to have a limestone sill, and you can kind of see that at the window on the front line, front facade, and detailing. We're also doing a lot of corbelling, which is an older style, obviously, for masonry and some of the detailing there. But the intention, was to really pay homage to the original building design that we had when it was a commercial mixed-use building. We really wanted to ensure we stayed with that. I know everyone really liked the design of that, and then introducing the fourth floor. The reason for the black is just, to kind of create a shadow effect, lighten up the building a little bit at the top, and allow it to kind of not feel like it's, overtaking Menor Avenue. Again, apologize for submitting so much. It is our intention to submit tomorrow for the next step and for coming back for planning. So we really wanted, knowing that there was a short time frame between tonight and tomorrow's submission deadline, we wanted to try to get as many staff comments out and be able to be addressed for that submission tomorrow. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the commission?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Varga.
Couple almost housekeeping items. Trash enclosures, transformer enclosures should be building materials, shouldn't just, especially with their locations, just include that in I mean, that's actually required to some degree by the district. The building is a little simpler than the original building. You had some ins and outs, some balconies. Is there any opportunity for any kind of roof development or rooftop, or are you kind of setting that aside? I know.
I would love that. Unfortunately, it's cost prohibitive at this time.
Okay. And the only other just a reaction, I mean, in general, we could really use this in Mentor. But the only other thought I have is that all these, I love the floor, the ceiling glass. My only thought is that it all faces directly south. So you're probably going to have to include some type of solar mitigation, whether it's exterior, whether it's finishes on the inside, because otherwise all those units are going to get really, really hot.
So we'll be utilizing a low E, window with a strong U value and solar heat gain resistance. They would meet a LEED criteria from those window styles and aspects. Also, we will have window treatments for the interior. There'll be either a blind. We typically do either a 2-inch wood slat white window blind or a perforated coil or roller.
Right.
So either of those will end up as we further develop.
And again, I'm just saying because of that, the thought occurred to me, could you have something exterior, sunshade or a sun shelf or something? But I'm not saying that's a requirement. I'm just saying that to address the solar aspect could have an architectural component included in it. That's all. Thank you.
Is there, Mr.
Mr.
Hadd?
Chairman, just a couple comments. I like the idea too, it looks great. Being mixed use, for the residents, will there be like parking for them?
So we have
Resident parking
we
only?
have one-to-one parking for per unit enclosed in the garage, which is a lower level access. And then obviously there's the additional parking on the surface for both the retail, restaurant, and I'll call it overflow for the resident.
And then for the residents to get into their building, there'll be an elevator underneath the building? Somehow you're going to connect that underground to the building?
Yeah, so the elevator's right there in the middle and has a reverse door for that floor. But yeah, they'll be able to pull right in and walk in enclosed.
They won't have to go up the stairs? Okay. Thank you.
Is there anything else? Could you talk about, I love this too, and I think this is a real nice jolt because especially with the housing study, could you talk about like who you're marketing this to and
Sure.
yeah, just a brief overview.
Sure. We're predominantly looking at young professionals and empty nesters. We are having a mix of studio, first 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms. And they're upscale in quality. We're going to have building amenities that'll be attractive, including a fitness center. Of course, having the underground parking is helpful as well. There may be a co-work space, so if you have somebody who has a position that they, work from home from, then they could go and there might be a Zoom room or something that they can go in on the first floor in the lobby area. That's predominantly who we're marketing to. Fortunately, when we started this, we were looking at the office component, and Geist has a great reputation with office, but they have a spectacular reputation with multifamily. So we've looked at a lot of the product they put out on multifamily and who they've attracted, and those are generally the type of tenants they attract, and they're upscale finishes. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Brandon.
Yeah, they'll be well appointed, obviously, modern apartment building, meeting and matching, the market of what you see in downtown Cleveland and also in the suburban markets. LVT flooring, tiled shower walls, kitchen backsplash, etc. Another item from an amenity perspective, we are providing, and we will be asking for relief on the landscaping component on the rear of the site. That will be a part of the submission tomorrow. There's a triangular area in the rear. Formerly, because of the landscaping, screening and buffering to the adjoining property, we're going to be putting that full height board-on-board fence, that vinyl fence on the back that was previously approved on the project, so it'll have full screen to the adjacent properties. And one of the things that we felt was, instead of loading that with landscaping, that snow is going to get pushed in the winter too and just die, that we would allow it to be a pet relief area. So this will be a pet-friendly building. In the lower level of the building, there will be a pet wash as well. We also have one-to-one bike parking spaces in the units as well. So there'll be a rack on the front end of those parking spaces that people can put their bikes in indoors and on that lower area.
Thank you. I know it's hard to predict, but with the 3 different type of units, any idea what the rentals what the cost would be? I know it's hard to predict, but.
We're still at the $2. We're still thinking at the $2 per square foot is the cost.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Okay, so the ground floor is retail or office or something like that.
Predominantly restaurant is what we're gearing it
Is
to.
your intention that the primary access to that is from the rear of the building, from the parking lot, and not from Menor Avenue? Because you're hanging right on Menor Avenue here.
Right, and we are actually, is the building next to it, that whole area, we're along the same property line as them. We wanted to maintain that, and we actually need to because the buildings were butting against each other for so long. So it would all depend. I mean, you see tenant suite A and tenant suite B. It would sort of depend upon if they go all the way from front to back. We'd probably like to have entrance on the front and entrance on the back. And we've wanted, when we initially looked at the first building, we had some outdoor space, and obviously we can't do that with this building, but as the new trend with restaurants are those garage doors that kind of open that allow you to have more flexible space when you have nicer temps, which, you know, is not really that many months out of the year here in Menor. So it would all depend upon where the restaurant intends for that entrance to be. Ideally, there'd be one in the front and one in the back.
So, like I said, that's a double wide sidewalk.
Yeah.
You know that. It's
Yes.
noisy. It's
It
busy
is.
traffic. Perhaps some streetscaping to consider.
Well, the only problem with the streetscaping is we were right there on the street, and there is parking spaces in the front. So we do not want to remove those. Those are very helpful, especially if you have restaurants and it's pickup. If you were to plant trees or anything in there, they would die. Yep. The only thing that we could do is you could see those little dots on there. We're doing planters. Those would be easier to maintain and would presumably survive better than any type of tree or landscape right on the street.
Okay, thank you. Nothing else.
Is there anything else? You know, you could do jazzercise in the front too.
I thought you were going to sign up for that, right?
Yeah.
I'll see you at class.
With that, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, no, we don't vote. We don't vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy, anything?
Nothing else.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.